welcome to the Art of Being Human. We've been working on adjustment mechanisms and to help you understand how people react to stress, adjustment mechanisms and all of that. And there are about 10 of them, depending upon whose list you read. And we've gone through, I'll tell you what we've gone through: working harder, daydreaming, repression, regression, rationalization, and identification. Identification was really the last one we did. We started to do projection, and I didn't go any further because we were basically out of time. So why don't we start with projection? It is an adjustment or a defense mechanism, and it's kind of unique because whatever problems and flaws you may have, you don't see them as a part of yourself. You see them as a part of other people. So whatever it is that you have about yourself that frankly isn't very good or doesn't help you with stress or causes you a problem, you attribute it to somebody else, not you. It's like saying, it's your fault that I have this problem. Because it's your problem, it's not mine. I don't have this problem. For example, supposing I'm very argumentative. I'm not, by the way, but supposing I am. I start arguments all the time. If anyone doesn't agree with me, I'm going to argue with them about it and so forth. So I go and do this argumentative thing. So somebody finally catches up with me and tells me, you are argumentative. You're always starting an argument. And what my response is going to be, if I use progression as my defense mechanism, is, well, I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of arguments, but I'm not the one that starts them. It's other people that have that characteristic. I'm just responding to what's wrong with them. So whatever flaws I have, if it's jealousy, if it's the fact I can't get along with people, if it's the fact that I'm argumentative, whatever it is, or I don't get my work done, or I daydream too much, or whatever it is that's going on, I attribute that to other people, not myself. I do not have a clear picture of who I am. I have a picture of who other people are as they respond to me, but I don't have a picture of who I am. Why? It's because everybody else's fault. If I want to argue, somebody else started the argument. If I am daydreaming too much, well, somebody else daydreams. I'm only responding to what they're doing. I don't have the problem. Somebody else has the problem, and I have to respond to their problem, but it's not my problem. That's projection. Put your own problems on to somebody else, and that is a defense mechanism, and it can cause problems because people see you behaving in a certain way, and you deny that you're doing it. Other people are doing it, but certainly not you. So it's not being realistic. You know, if you can pinpoint and say, well, yeah, I am argumentative, aren't I? Maybe I should try to stop that. Maybe I should try to do something about it. Or yes, maybe I do waste a lot of time because I'm in my own little world and I'm not paying attention. Well, maybe I should stop that. The whole idea of understanding what your own defense mechanisms are is so that you can make changes if you want to, or it may not be anything that you have a problem with and you may decide to live with it, or you don't really care. It's just an understanding of yourself. You need to have more of an understanding of yourself. But in projection, whatever flaws you have, and we would have to consider them flaws, you project onto somebody else. That's their flaws. Are you late with your homework all the time? Well, it's because other people cause me to be late. I don't have a problem with lateness, but other people do, and I have to respond to that. So that's what projection is. It's putting your flaws on somebody else rather than seeing them in yourself. And it can be a problem because you don't change. You don't change because you consider whatever problems exist to be somebody else's problems, not yours. So that's what projection is. So you have to get used to the fact, if you're dealing with a person that has this problem of projection, that you are going to be blamed for things things that you're not blameworthy for. You know, that you're going to have to be blamed for things that you don't cause, because no one else is going to agree that they started the problem, not you. So it's a case of interfering with interpersonal relationships when a person does that. Because after a while, if you're on the receiving end and everybody's blaming you, or a certain person is blaming you, you're going to shy away from a relationship. You're going to say to yourself, I'm tired of being blamed for what somebody else does, and I'm just not going to take it anymore, and you just kind of fade out of the relationship. So it can become a relationship issue. So that is progression. Now, the next one that we want to do is compensation. Compensation is pretty healthy. Compensation is if you can't do something and you've tried and you can't do it, you switch to something else. There's nothing wrong with that. It seems to be a healthy defense mechanism. So supposing I want to be a great athlete, but I have problems. I can't run fast enough, or I can't catch balls well enough, or I can't play and tag the base fast enough. I'm just not good physically. And so therefore, I want to be a great athlete in a certain sport, but I can't do it. I can't do it because my own physical body cannot allow me to do it, because it's not fast enough, or it doesn't work fast enough, or it doesn't react, it doesn't react like it should. So instead, I do something else that I can do. What could be healthier than that? I might be very good in mathematics, so therefore I'm going to try to do more in mathematics, and I'm not going to do the sports because the sports just don't work for me. How many kids want to be professional sports? They want to get into professional sports. How many people actually make it? You have to be so good in order to make it. It's the same with music. The chances that a person will be a musical star, a musical singer, getting awards for their singing and things like that, the chances are so slim because the competition is so great. No matter how good you are, there are 15 people that are just as good as you are, or maybe even better. It's very, very difficult to have a career in sports. It's very, very difficult to have a career in music. It's very, very difficult to get to the top of the heap, so to speak, and make a name for yourself. You almost have to do something else. You have to do it at a lower level and enjoy it for all that you can. But what you have to do is realize that your chances of doing something that you want to do, you've got to be so good at it that it's difficult to break in. It's difficult to do what it is that you want to do. So you have to be prepared to make a change. And most people aren't so good at something that they can claim that they are the best. I mean, who's the best? It's very rare that anyone can claim to be the best. But some people do catch a break and they do make it, and that's fine. But you just have to realize that if you can't, because legitimately you just can't do it, you're not good enough to do it. But I'm not saying that you're a bad person or anything like that. I'm saying that you're limited in what you can do just simply by the fact that you're a human being. You can't do everything that you want to do. But that's all right. You can do what you can do. And I think part of mental health is knowing what you can do and do that. And if you can't reach to a height that you want to reach to, go as far as you can. If you want to be a doctor, but you feel that you will never be able to master all the things that a doctor has to do, then go into another branch of the medical field. A lot of people do. I had a little niece when she was young. She said, Auntie Pat, I'm going to be a brain surgeon. It's brain surgery or nothing. And I had to explain to her, because she was only a child, there's lots of things between brain surgery and nothing. There's nursing. There's all kinds of specialists. You can be an audiologist. You can be working with blood. You can do all kinds of things. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to be good in medicine. There are all kinds of things you can do in medicine besides being a brain surgeon. Well, she is in the field of medicine, and she's doing very, very well with it. She's not a brain brain surgeon, but she can do anything that she wants to do. She works with patients, she can do prescriptions, she can do all kinds of things, and she's very good at it, and she loves it, and they love her because she's so compassionate as a person. But she couldn't be a brain surgeon. I can remember she wanted to be a pilot. Well, she was kind of screened out just for some simple little medical thing that was going on with her. They wouldn't let her be a pilot. But it doesn't mean that if she wanted to, she couldn't fly an airplane. If she wanted to buy an airplane, take lessons and fly, she could do that. So actually, the healthy part of this is to know what you can do and go with it. And if you can't do everything that you want to do what you can and go as far with it as you can. And if it turns out that that field just is not right for you, then turn to another field and do something else. That would be probably the healthiest of the defense mechanisms. They all have some areas of health in the sense that they take you away from something that you're having stress about, but a lot of them don't substitute anything that's healthy instead of themselves. And so when you get the compensation, that is something that you can do. If you can't do one thing, you do another thing, and that's important to be able to understand that. Now, the next one would be attention getting. This is not a good one. It's awkward. It's usually not successful. And what it is doing something that gives you attention. It doesn't matter what it is. You just want attention. You could fake an illness and get attention. You could pretend you had cancer. You could pretend that you had a sprained ankle and limp around. Anything that gets you attention. Why would you need to have all of that attention anyway? Anyone who's using that kind of a mechanism needs to ask themselves, what kind of attention do I want and why do I need it? Excuse me. I can remember during the summers I used to work at a hotel, and it was a grand hotel. They had wonderful, wonderful lands around it. You know, you could go swimming. There's all kinds of things. You could go hiking. And there was a movie star that would come in. And I got to know her because she was playing piano, and I knew something about the piano, and we kind of made a connection. But all the time she was there, she pretended that she was still on stage. The kind of costuming that she wore on her hit show, she continued to wear there as if she was still on the hit show, even though the show was no longer running. And it was really kind of too bad. And then she developed this fake sprained ankle thing. She'd go around in crutches, or she'd go around in canes, and she'd be limping. There wasn't anything wrong with her. But she kept doing that over and over again, and people would rush to her aid, and they'd give her all kinds of attention because she was so well known that she would be recognized. People knew who she was. And I can remember the show was kind of a long-running show, and she was on it, and she was one of the main characters, and she wore certain types of clothing on the show, certain kinds of costuming on the show, and she would continue to wear them in the hotel when she was on vacation, and it wasn't necessary that she do that. And then she came up with this sprained ankle thing, and she had her ankle all wrapped up. Now, maybe she did sprain it a little, but I thought that a lot of it was play acting, and I still think a lot of it was play acting. How come? She needed attention. Why do people need attention? I think partly if they're not getting healthy attention when they're young, then their self-esteem suffers. If you have a child and they're doing something and they're doing it well, praise them to the skies for that. You know, don't just pretend this is ordinary. They need to have your love. They need to have your attention. If they're playing sports, they need to have you there to support them. If they're doing music and doing concerts and so forth, they need to have you there to support them. And if they get the love and the care from you when they're young, I don't think they have such a tendency to crave it when they're older and find ways of getting it which are not healthy. Now, there's nothing wrong specifically in play acting something, but you're not being realistic. You're not being realistic with your life. You're just doing something so people will pay attention to you, and that's not good. That's just not helpful at all. So it's not going to help you solve any problems. It's not going to help you stave off any anxiety. It defeats its own purpose. You're getting attention because you want attention, not because you need to have attention, but because you need to have it emotionally, but you don't need to have it in terms of the situation that you're pretending. So it's not a really good, healthy mechanism, but people do use it, and they use it to anything they can. Adults sometimes use it when they try to look younger, and of course that's another defense mechanism of regression, but they try to look younger. A person who's 85 deciding to have their hair dyed a certain color. I've seen people with pink hair. I've seen people with orange hair, just for people to pay attention to them. And it's not necessarily healthy at all, because you need to know what you're good at and do those things. You need to know what your interests are and follow those things. And it needs to be realistic as to what life is like. And if it's not realistic as to what life is like, then you're wasting your time, you're wasting everybody else's time. It gets to be awkward. And people don't know how to respond to you. You know, they just don't know how to respond to you. And so they kind of ease out of the relationship. If you can't be realistic with what you're doing, then people will soon find that out. And they won't know how to respond to you. And after a while, they will start stopping. They won't see you very much. They'll back out of the relationship, all because you're not being realistic. The healthiest thing, if you want to have good mental health, you need to know how you handle stress. You need to know what your strengths are. You need to go with your strengths full force. And if you want to try other things, that's fine. But if you find a block that you can't do it or that it's just not right for you, then back out of it. Do something else. Do what you can do. Enjoy your life. Have a group of hobbies. Sometimes a hobby can actually develop into some kind of a career choice, you know. And sometimes that's very productive and that's very helpful. But don't cheat yourself by pretending you're something that you're not, because you're not helping yourself and you're not helping other people to like you as well. So anyway, getting attention is probably not a good defense mechanism to use. Some people use them, but they shouldn't be using them because it's not healthy for you. Now, the last one that we have to do is withdrawal. What is that? Withdrawal is unhealthy. Withdrawal means you're going to withdraw from life. You're not going to have social relationships. You're going to back out of everything. You're going to just withdraw from life. You're going to withdraw from what you need to do, withdraw from what you should be doing, withdraw from what your requirements are in terms of your life, and just back off and be a loner. Just sit around by yourself. Don't try to make friends. Don't go out for lunch. Don't do anything that's your responsibility. Just back out and withdraw until you're sitting there by yourself, not doing anything, not being productive, and also not being very happy. And so, you know, this is not a good defense mechanism. So what would we say constitutes mental health, and what would you say constitutes a mental illness? In mental illness, you're impaired. You can't do the things that you want to do, and you're impaired in the fact that you have the symptoms of mental illness. You may be way too depressed. You may be way too anxious. You may be so far afield that your personality just doesn't blend in at all. And so therefore you can't function as a normal person. A person who is mentally healthy knows what their strengths are, accepts their weaknesses because we all have them, and that's all right, so we have them. Some people have learning disabilities. That's okay. It doesn't make you a second-class citizen. It doesn't make you unintelligent. It means there's a certain area that you can't do. That's okay. You know, even Einstein had some kind of a problem with reading. You know, he had a disorder. He had a learning disability. He could do mathematics. He could do almost anything. His IQ was probably around 200, probably the highest that's ever been recorded. He was very, very smart. But there were some things he couldn't do. And so the things that he couldn't do, like reading and things like that, that most people would be able to do, he didn't have a good track record there. So even he had his weaknesses. Did it make him an unintelligent person? No, he was absolutely brilliant. A person that has a learning disability is usually a brilliant person, not a person that's slow, but a person who's brilliant. But there's a certain area that they cannot do. It doesn't mean that they're dumb. It doesn't mean that they don't have IQ. They have IQ, but it's in a different area. If you can't do mathematics, you may be brilliant in the arts. You know, if you can't do arts, you may be brilliant in mathematics. So having a learning disability is not a reflection at all upon your character, and it's not a reflection at all upon your intelligence. You can be very, very intelligent, but there are just some things you can't do. So I think any person who's going to be mentally healthy needs to know what they can do well, and what are their areas of weakness. Stay away from the weakness unless you just want to work with it to see if you can get better. But don't depend on getting very, very good in an area of weakness. It's just not going to happen. Some people have no sense of direction. Some people have a sense of direction and they never can get lost. You know, everybody's different. I think what we have to do in society is to recognize the people for what they are, and kind of celebrate the differences that people have. It doesn't make them unusual, it just makes them human beings. And all human beings have worth, and all human beings have things that they're good at, and all human beings have things that they're not good at. And so we should celebrate the fact that we have differences, not that we're not alike. We don't want everybody to be alike. That would be boring. So at any rate, these are the defense mechanisms that we have worked on, and we've completed that. So we will, starting on the next segment, work with personality disorders, and that rises to a whole new level. Personality disorders rise to the level of impairment. People can't function very well if they have a personality disorder. They're very difficult to deal with. They have a very difficult time in life. People who deal with them have a very difficult time because it's very hard to deal with a person with a personality disorder. So as I say, it rises to a whole new level of impairment that you don't find with people who use defense mechanisms, as we all do. So I'm going to close it here, and we'll continue next time with personality disorders. Please join me then.